Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. The film opens with a scene where our main character, who is also a hired assassin, is sitting in one of the buildings in Paris. It's early morning outside. He is wrapped in a blanket, and he monitors his pulse, thinking about how hard it is to stay inactive. He falls asleep and wakes up the next day, already late in the morning, when the city begins to come alive. The main character reflects on how many people live in the world and how every day, a huge number of them die for various reasons. He doesn't think about it for no reason. He believes that his job as a hired assassin doesn't greatly affect the global statistics. The assassin puts on music through his headphones and starts doing his morning exercises, all while explaining to us in a voice over the main ways to be a successful killer. Never leave behind your DNA. Be inconspicuous and don't stay in one place for too long. The main character goes outside in his unremarkable look, which he copied from a German tourist, because in Paris, no one likes German tourists, and therefore it's unlikely anyone will want to approach him. On his way to his surveillance point, he stops at McDonald's to grab an easy way to recharge. On the way, his employer calls him, and from their conversation, we understand that the assassin has been waiting for his target for 5 days already. Still there, it's been 5 days. They agree that he will wait for the target another 2 days and then leave Paris. Right after, he smashes the phone and goes to eat his burgers. After a small breakfast, he returns to his observation spot to continue surveillance. He watches people in the city through his sniper scope. Evening comes, and the assassin prepares his weapon to do his dirty work, but he is interrupted by an unexpected guest, who suddenly starts pounding on his hideout door. The main character stands ready to shoot the intruder, but the person gets very lucky. He just throws some bills and papers through the doorway and hurriedly leaves without ruining the assassin's drawn-out operation. The assassin returns to his work. He watches the city again, seeing how people live. Someone's having sex. Someone is simply coming home from work. Not spotting his target, he brushes his teeth before going to bed, carefully removing all traces of his DNA, and goes to sleep. The hero is very disciplined and wakes up at regular intervals to check if his target has appeared. And during one of those awakenings, he spots the coveted target, who is heading up to his apartment. The maid seemingly purposely opens all the curtains in the victim's apartment. The assassin starts preparing himself and his weapon for the one perfect shot. He turns on music to drown out his inner voice, which could distract him from his task, and he uses special drops in his eyes to make his vision perfect and sharp. The voiceover, the killer's own, tells us what he is thinking at that moment. I don't give up. He starts aiming, but unexpectedly his pulse jumps to 100. For a perfect shot, his pulse needs to be no higher than 60. He inhales deeply to calm down and goes back to work. He watches his target, preparing for a romantic encounter, and waits for the right moment to pull the trigger. He finds the moment, a breath, a shot. But at the last instant, a girl in lingerie steps in front of the target and gets hit instead, falling dead. Mission failed. Panic immediately erupts in the building across the street. At that moment, the assassin quickly packs up all his things and evidence and heads out into the street to leave the crime scene. He gets on his bike and rides as far as possible from the place. Just as he takes off, a large group of police officers arrives at the scene. While riding through the city, he gets rid of evidence by throwing it into the sewer, a garbage truck, and a river. Reaching the nearest gas station, he starts scrubbing off all traces of the crime from his body. After changing clothes and shaving, he heads straight to the airport. At the boarding terminal, police officers with a dog are already patrolling. The assassin panics and heads to the restroom to wash off any lingering scent of gunpowder and weapons from himself. He calms down and then calmly passes through passport control. Sitting in the helicopter, the assassin notices a suspicious man in a business suit. He feels something when looking at him but doesn't yet understand what it is. After successfully leaving the country, the main character checks into a nearby hotel, once again noticing the same man from the helicopter. Settling into the hotel, he spends the night awake, watching the door, having rigged a glass on the door handle and a metal bowl under the door so that if anyone tries to break in, he would hear it. The night passes peacefully and he moves on. He flies home to the Dominican Republic. Arriving at his remote villa, he notices unfamiliar footprints near the gates and a pile of cigarette butts. Grabbing his gun, he runs towards the villa from which loud music is playing. Entering the house, he finds signs of a struggle and blood. Apparently, someone attacked the villa, likely linked to the failure of his mission in Paris. What really matters is that his beloved was waiting for him at home and seemingly became the victim of the attack. After quickly gathering all the necessary information, he heads to the hospital where his girlfriend is located. Bursting into the room, he finds her unconscious with her older brother sitting by the bed. The brother asks him not to disturb her since she just received a blood transfusion. He says that she managed to describe the attackers. It was a man and a woman, and she even managed to stab one of them. He also tells him they fled the scene in a green taxi. After a brief conversation with the brother, the assassin arranges for his girlfriend to be transferred to a private clinic for complete recovery. At that moment, she regains consciousness and begins speaking with him. She tells him that she didn't tell them anything about him and stayed strong no matter what they did. The assassin is proud of his girlfriend and promises her to fix everything. "I was strong. I know you were." Returning to his house, he prepares everything he needs to find and punish those responsible. He gathers all necessary documents and weapons and heads out to find the culprits. After driving around the city for a while, he finds matching green taxis and tracks them to a rental office. Pretending to want to rent a car, he sneaks into the office and finds all the needed information on the computer about who rented a car that day. After getting what he needed, he fakes a robbery and leaves. The next day, he finds the person who drove to his villa that day. He follows him and gets into his car, sitting in the back seat as a customer. He points a gun at the driver and demands to hear everything about the trip 3 days ago. The driver, at first confused and thinking it's just a robbery, hands him his wallet. Okay. After realizing what the assassin really wants, he begins talking. After receiving all the necessary information, the assassin tells him to pull off the road. The nervous driver offers him a cigarette, but the assassin emotionlessly shoots him in the back of the head. Cleaning up all evidence, he moves on to continue his mission of revenge, if you can call it that. The assassin arrives at the airport and takes a helicopter to New Orleans. The next day, we see our main character driving a minivan to one of his 6 storage units scattered across America. He reflects on how what worries him most is the idea that one day he'll forget to pay the rent on one of them, and how surprised people would be to find out what's inside those units. After replenishing his ammunition, he takes everything he needs for the continuation of his revenge and heads out. On the way to his next destination, he stops at a supermarket and buys a large garbage bin as part of his plan. Next, we see a scene where he's sitting in front of an unknown building, disguised as a garbage man. He sees a woman he clearly recognizes enter the building. Waiting for the right moment, he notices a mail truck pull up to the building. Taking advantage of the security system's vulnerability, he slips inside, following the mailman who is delivering mail to someone the assassin knows. He waits for the right moment and sneaks into her office. It turns out Dolores is the secretary of the person the killer had spoken with by phone back in France. Oh my God. Stop saying that. They recognize him immediately, which terrifies them. Understanding why he has come, he orders Dolores to tie up her boss, and then she cuffs herself to a radiator in the bathroom. Hey, first of all, who cares? Not receiving the necessary answers from his former partner, the assassin demands that he hand over all the paper files he has accumulated over years of working together. The partner tries to convince him that all information related to the villa attack and to the assassin himself was stored on laptops. And since the assassin destroyed them with a nail gun, all of it was permanently erased. The killer doesn't believe him and decides to take extreme measures. He shoots 3 nails into his partner's chest and immediately calls emergency services. He does this so that under the pressure of impending death, the partner would reveal where the information is, since even if the police found documents later, it would lead to serious consequences for his family and close ones. Not getting the needed information, the assassin grabs the garbage bin to dispose of his former partner's body. He enters the bathroom where Dolores is sitting, who by now has overdosed on pills. She starts begging for her life, telling him she has children. "My children need my life insurance." Empathy is weakness. He unlocks her from the radiator, and after cleaning up all the evidence, he takes her far away from the building. Need any help getting rid of that body? In the next scene, we see the main character driving together with Dolores toward one of his safe houses. Dolores can't leave the car because she's tied down with zip ties. They go into a house where Dolores helps him find all the documents related to the order placed on the assassin. Upset, Dolores walks down the stairs, and at that moment, the assassin quickly breaks her neck. This can be seen as an act of mercy toward Dolores. Her death was sudden and painless. Having gathered all necessary information and completed his grim task, the assassin begins disposing of the evidence again. He loads the car onto a ferry, throwing a bucket with an unknown substance into the water along the way. He then drives out of the city and buries the body of his former partner without even removing it from the garbage bin. Finishing his business, the assassin heads to the address of one of the attackers on his villa. He drives past the house and notices a group of Latino gang members hanging around in the attacker's yard. The assassin decides to wait and follow them, hoping the noisy company wouldn't spend the night there. He sets up an observation point and waits for the right moment. That evening, the entire group of gang members heads out to a bar and the assassin follows. After a night of partying, the same attacker returns home alone. The assassin springs into action. He approaches the fence immediately facing a guard dog, but he had prepared for that and throws sedative-laced dog food over the fence. After waiting a little, the assassin easily enters the yard. The dog sleeps soundly. He enters the house and begins searching for his target, but suddenly he's attacked from the shadows. A fight breaks out. The opponent is larger than the assassin and clearly skilled. During the struggle, they destroy the entire apartment, and the assassin drops his gun. Despite this, he manages to severely wound his attacker by slashing his femoral artery. The attacker refuses to give up and starts shooting at the assassin, but he dodges and escapes into a room where he finds another weapon. Finishing the fight, the assassin prepares to leave, but just then, the dog regains consciousness and chases after him. The assassin barely manages to get over the fence and throws a Molotov cocktail into the house to destroy any evidence. Limping, he walks back to his car. The next day, he flies by helicopter to New York. He's clearly worn out by this exhausting lifestyle and looks very tired. But the work isn't finished yet. The assassin follows his next target, arriving at the address he found in the office of his former colleague. He begins surveillance. He finds it strange that a professional killer chose to live in a densely populated residential area. Evening falls, and finally, his target appears. The woman drives off, and the assassin follows. They stop side by side at a traffic light, but he doesn't pull the trigger, deciding to wait for a better opportunity. She arrives at a restaurant and sits down to have dinner. The assassin reflects that in the event of a woman's death, the first suspect is always her boyfriend. He enters the restaurant and sits down opposite her. "I've been so good for so long." The woman, a killer herself, immediately understands why he has come and starts telling him about her life. She offers him to share a final meal with her, but he coldly refuses, not reacting to anything she says. She orders whiskey and wine to accompany her last supper. The assassin refuses alcohol. She explains that she did not support the idea of attacking his girlfriend, but didn't choose the methods, and asks him to understand her as a fellow professional. She continues trying to soften him up, even telling him a joke about a bear. A hunter goes into the woods and he sees this grizzly. Remarkably, she succeeds somewhat. The assassin smiles at the joke and even answers her a few times. He even agrees to share a shot of whiskey with her. As the meal ends, waiters come over and the woman asks them for some ice cream, but the assassin's cold gaze makes it clear she shouldn't order anything more. They go outside. They walk to the river where the woman suggests he pick the place of her death. She approaches the steps, slips, falls lifelessly. "Help a girl out, won't you?" and flips onto her back with a knife clutched in her hand. Proof that even in her final moments, she was prepared to fight. With the perpetrators dealt with, the assassin has only one target left: the client who ordered the hit. He boards a helicopter and flies to Chicago, where he begins surveillance of his final target. He watches him near his home and infiltrates a parking garage to find a way into the building. He orders the necessary equipment to break the lock he'll need. The assassin continues to plan meticulously. Finally, everything is ready. He steals the cleaner's key to the apartment building and follows his target to the gym, where, while the target is training, he forges a copy of the apartment key. That evening, he heads straight to the target's home. Entering the apartment, he finds the target on a call. The man immediately hangs upon seeing the assassin. The main character explains who he is and asks if they still have any unfinished business. The target insists he had no personal vendetta and only followed the recommendations of the assassin's former associate. The assassin decides not to kill him, but warns him that if he ever tries anything again, the consequences will be immediate and deadly. If I have to come back, they part ways. The assassin returns home to the Dominican Republic. The film ends with a scene of the main character living a carefree life at his villa, drinking coffee with orange peel next to his beloved, reflecting that everything could have been different if he had ever abandoned his principles and ideals.